Alright, so for this video, we're going to do a little bit of a back to basic approach, and that's because we've already done kind of fancy schmancy videos in terms of the reviews on both of these and some comparisons. But today we're going to be looking at the Kobo Elipsa versus the Onyx Boox Note 3. This will be the same as the Note Air, pretty much. They're both the same company, overall the same specs, and the same screen size. So with that out of the way, let's look at some styluses, or styli. Now, with the Note line, including the Air, the Note, the Nova, all of the note-taking devices by Onyx, you can use any stylus. You can use the Reinkstone stylus, the Remarkable stylus, or even this one with my name on it. This one is the Lamy EMR. This one's really cool. We're going to be using this one just because I really like this pen. Now, because it's running Wacom or EMR, electromagnetic resonance, that means you can use any pen under the sun. Because the Elipsa is running an active capacitive layer, no Wacom, no EMR, you only have this one choice. What this is a stylus that is actually running off of a quadruple A battery. Yes, a quadruple A, not a triple A. And this goes in there, and you can only use this on the Kobo, and you can't use the Kobo pen on anything else. It just won't work. So that's a little bit of a downside, but the beauty about this is that it's very accurate and you don't need to charge it. You just swap out the battery and away you go. Unfortunately, because the Onyx Boox Note 3 is a full multimedia tablet with an e-ink screen, and the Kobo Elipsa is essentially a large screen e-book reader with note-taking, these can't really be compared from a multimedia standpoint. And why that is because this has onboard audio, it has speakers, it has Google Play, you can sideload in apps. There's so much more you can do on the Note than you can on the Kobo. So with that out of the way, we do have to proceed from there. You get the sidebar here, library, store, notes, storage, apps, and settings. Settings will look like this on both of these units. Just go down there and click. Settings have a pretty different approach. This is more text-based, it tells you exactly what's inside, and this is more icon heavy and a nice simplistic grid. Because the Onyx is not an e-book reader first and foremost, they do rely more on browsing your storage, folders, etc. Whereas because the Kobo is more of an e-book reader, it gives you that approach. Tells you how much percent is read, what file format it is, little cover art, all that fun stuff on here. And why that is because Kobo wants to stay true to what made the Kobo line so desirable in the first place, and that is having the ability to read and get a good experience at reading. Opening up a book, you have the ability to read the book as normal, swiping pages, tapping pages, and you have long press as well on both of these respectively. They will both do their own thing. They have icon heavy once again down here. You have some dictionary definitions and some highlights, notes, and what have you. You can watch the individual reviews on both of these if you want to see more in depth. I'm going to be saying that a lot, both intentionally and unintentionally. Now, the cool thing about these is that you can start writing right away on both of these, and because this is an EPUB, that's usually unheard of. You're not supposed to be able to write on books. There have been some previous iterations of devices that you had to trigger scribbles and all that kind of stuff, but you can just start writing right away. Now on the Onyx you can only do writing or erasing. On the Kobo you can do writing, erasing, or you can do highlighting as well, which really only the Sony DPT has been able to do thus far. So this is really cool because you have two buttons on here. You can press the highlight button or you can press the eraser button. So that's really cool how both of these out of the box can just take notes on an EPUB book. PDF files are very well displayed on 10.3s. No, it will never be the actual size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper or A4. And this is because it's too small. 13.3s are really the only size that can fulfill that request in having a true paper experience without being scaled down. They both turn pages very kind of at their own pace. Onyx is a little bit quicker, but the refresh is about the same. Again, you can just start writing away on both of these. And on the Kobo, you see you have a different kind of highlight. Because this is a PDF, not an EPUB, you no longer are able to isolate the actual text elements on here, which means if I was on an ebook, I could go here to here and it would highlight all of that. But now what it's actually done is turned into a highlighter, and it's freeform, so I can go wherever I want. And why this is cool is because now I can draw with the pen itself and immediately switch over to the highlight. So far, no device has ever been able to allow you to do that. Now, there is some delay with the Kobo, as you've seen there, and we're not going to fake it. There was a bunch of delay in the review video. We see that. And that's because the Kobo is not as fast as other devices. There's far more latency, and it's just a little bit slow when it comes to note-taking, and it needs to play catch-up. You are all here to watch note-taking. That's the beauty of both of these units. I mean, that's why the Kobo exists, to be large and note-taking. Now, they have two note pads on the Elipsa. They have the basic one and they have the advanced one. We'll touch on the basic one really quickly. This is your typical canvas from edge to edge. You have very limited things you can do. You can choose the pen, you can choose 5 different pens, including a highlighter, 5 different line sizes. Because this is not Wacom, thus it has a little bit less sensitivity when it comes to the tip. That means you have to choose your line size to begin with, and you have 5 different shades. You also have some things over here where you can clear page, delete page, etc. And that's really it in the note-taking on the basic. Now this one is the basic. The Onyx is very fast. It's one of the fast, if not the fastest response and the lowest latency of any note-taking unit. It might not feel the best. You can kind of get around that by using different pens. The Remarkable has a little bit more resistance and grit to it. The Lamy is more premium feeling in your hand, but it's a little more glidey on the screen. We suggest maybe the Stadler pen or the Mitsubishi. So there's a lot of options with this, whereas the Kobo, you have 0 options. You have the Kobo pen and that's it. You can't choose any other different pen, and so far there's only one type of nib. You have the eraser, or you could use the side eraser on here. Then you have a lot of different shades here, including colors. These colors will only show up after you export, of course, red, green, and blue, and the white is just an eraser. You have the lasso tool where you can lasso something and you can capture that element and freeform it. You can make it smaller, you can duplicate it, stamp it, delete it, etc. You have 2 different ways to do handwriting recognition as well. You can do reflow recognition, where it's going to convert everything and throw it to the top left corner, or you can do original recognition, in which case it'll just convert it right to where it is. From here you can long press it, stretch it, change everything out, etc. Now, something else the Onyx Boox line of devices do that no one else does is layers. And why that's cool is because you can add tons of new layers, including the template layer, and go over them with different things. So I can go here, choose a dark gray, really big pencil, and I can draw over that stuff like so. If I erase it, I'm actually not erasing everything. I'm only erasing what I've drawn over because I'm operating on several different layers. And you get a little thumbnail of what that layer holds so you don't get confused. There's also a bunch of things down below, like swap left and right, insert a picture, share, export. You can send with WhatsApp and Line and Facebook messaging, because you can sideload in all those apps on here. So this really does open you up just by having those apps to Microsoft OneDrive, Google Drive, your email, Outlook, anything on here, because sky's the limit when you have Google Play. Let's go over to the Kobo Elipsa and start giving him some points here. Alright, now you see what you see here and you're like, okay, I'm going to start writing. Well, not yet. Because this is the advanced notebook, you can't just write Freddy freehand. It's actually going to say try to make it smaller. You've done it wrong. And then you say, okay, I'll make it smaller, la 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 la. And it still says you're doing it wrong. And why that is because these are individual isolated sections. You just don't know it till you write something. For example, if I write my name on the screen right here, and you take your finger off and you're like, okay, cool, it hasn't gone away. That means it's accepted it as it's a proper thing. That's what I've done. From there, you can actually double tap it and it instantly translates it and changes it from your handwriting to what you've written. And you might be like, oh, wow, that was really cool. So these are the advantages, that it's very technical and it is very unconventional. So if you tap that after the fact, you now have this and you're like, okay, what do I do now? You can long press this block and you can copy it, paste it, delete it, and you can continue on with your life. So you say, I want to try something else now. Well, you go to the pen here and you're like, okay, well, this is the same thing I found on the basic. How is it different? Everything is under these 3 dots: drawing, diagram, math equation, and freeform section. If you want a deep dive, watch the review video, but we'll just touch on a bunch of these. The drawing, you can draw something. So I'll draw some squiggles with a guy standing here and maybe a thumbs up. So there we go. Now with this drawing, I can now tap it, and now this is my painting. I have made my painting and it is now a full individual drawing. Now the sides don't work very well, so you have to be quite specific. With this, I can leave it there, I can long press it, I can cut it, paste it, delete it, I can do whatever I want with it, and I continue on and say, this is a drawing. And from there, I can double tap those sections and it's changed it to this is a drawing. Visiting back those 3 dots, we can insert a diagram. This is where I'm going to start drawing some shapes. Now you might be thinking those aren't very good because they're not as good as the Onyx ones. Well, why this is good is because you can keep it like this, or you can actually double tap and it'll process into perfect triangles, circles, and squares. That is really nice because now your freehand drawings can turn into beautiful shapes without you even really trying. Because the Kobo doesn't have applications and it doesn't have a calculator, you'll have to do some handwritten ones like 2 + 2 bracket 6 times 45 equals, and then you double tap that, it'll process and tell you exactly what it is. Freeform section gives you a little box where you can draw anything you want on the page. And as you scroll up or down, you start to see all the other things you've done thus far. You see your math equations, you see your diagrams, and you see all of the things earlier on. So this is one big, long, scrollable page ledger of all of these fancy schmancy things. But none of it, other than the freeform section, is normal note-taking, and that could turn a lot of people off from this. This wasn't a challenge to see which one is better, because that's going to come down to subjective taste. Maybe people think that the Onyx is too non-user friendly and technical and I need to download apps, but at the same point, the Kobo's note-taking is a little bit difficult and it requires a lot of time to really get used to. So it's just a matter of your taste and which one you want. They're not cheap, so you really have to look at each individual review videos, watch a few comparisons to make your choice. If you want to see more e-ink and e-reader related videos, head over to goodereader.com, and you can buy both of these at goodereader.com/blog/shop. Everything will be down in the description below. Thanks so much everyone. For a comparison between the Elipsa and the Note line, this is Peter.